The world crumbled silently, not with a thunderous roar, but with a whisper of inevitable decay. Systems designed to protect humanity began to disintegrate, revealing the fragile infrastructure that once seemed impenetrable. Maria observed the gradual collapse from her small medical clinic in a remote village, watching as communication networks faltered, supply chains disappeared, and the intricate web of modern civilization unraveled thread by thread. Global health systems, once considered robust and sophisticated, revealed their fundamental weaknesses. Pandemic waves crashed against overwhelmed hospitals, medical professionals became casualties themselves, and entire regions transformed into isolated territories struggling for survival. The sophisticated technology that humanity had relied upon for decades suddenly became obsolete, replaced by raw human instinct and immediate adaptation. In her village, nestled between mountains and forgotten by mainstream emergency response teams, Maria understood that survival would depend on collective intelligence and immediate action. Her medical training, once considered routine, now represented a lifeline for an entire community facing unprecedented challenges. Each decision would carry the weight of collective survival. Each medical intervention could mean the difference between hope and total extinction. The breakdown was not sudden but gradual, a slow erosion of established structures that people had taken for granted. Communication networks collapsed, digital infrastructures became unreliable, and traditional support systems disintegrated. Governments, overwhelmed by multiple simultaneous crises, could no longer guarantee basic services or protection. What would humanity become when stripped of its technological comforts? How would communities reorganize when traditional power structures disappeared? These questions echoed in Maria's mind as she surveyed the changing landscape around her, recognizing that the next chapters of human existence would be written by those willing to adapt, collaborate, and reimagine survival. The village, once a quiet and predictable place, now pulsed with a new energy of collective survival. People who had previously lived parallel lives now found themselves interconnected, their individual skills and resources becoming crucial for collective preservation. Maria, with her medical knowledge, emerged not just as a healthcare professional, but as a potential architect of community resilience. Environmental disruptions compounded the human crisis. Unpredictable weather patterns, resource scarcity, and ecological transformations added layers of complexity to an already challenging scenario. The boundaries between natural disasters and human-induced catastrophes blurred, creating a new landscape of survival that demanded unprecedented levels of creativity and cooperation. In this context of profound uncertainty, Maria represented more than an individual. She embodied the potential for human adaptation, the capacity to transform challenges into opportunities, and the fundamental hope that communities could reinvent themselves in the face of total systemic collapse. The world was changing, and with it, the very definition of survival was being rewritten. Maria stood at the epicenter of this transformation, her medical bag a symbol of resistance, her knowledge a weapon against entropy, her spirit a beacon of potential regeneration. As the initial shock of systemic collapse settled into a new, harsh reality, Maria's role in the village began to crystallize with increasing clarity. The first true test of community survival emerged not from external threats, but from the internal dynamics of human vulnerability and collective response. Medical supplies dwindled rapidly. What once seemed abundant became precious beyond measure. Each bandage, each medication, each piece of medical equipment represented a lifeline that could mean survival or certain death. Maria quickly realized that traditional medical approaches would no longer suffice. The challenge demanded radical reimagination of healthcare, resource management, and community support. Communication became her first strategic priority. She began mapping the village's collective resources, identifying individuals with critical skills, farmers with medicinal plant knowledge, elders with traditional healing practices, craftspeople who could improvise medical equipment. The network of survival would be built not through institutional support, but through human connection and shared knowledge. Hunger and potential disease threatened more immediately than any external enemy. Maria understood that prevention would be more crucial than treatment. She initiated community meetings, transforming her small clinic into a strategic planning center. Here, collective intelligence would become their most powerful resource. The psychological impact of collapse weighed heavily. Fear, uncertainty, and the trauma of lost connections created invisible wounds that required as much attention as physical ailments. Maria recognized that maintaining community morale would be as critical as treating physical symptoms. Water became their most precious resource. She organized teams to secure and purify water sources, implementing rudimentary but effective filtration systems using local materials. Each drop represented potential life, each clean water source a victory against potential epidemic. Nutrition emerged as another critical battleground. Traditional agricultural practices needed rapid adaptation. Maria worked with local farmers to maximize food production, introducing crop rotation techniques and identifying alternative food sources that could sustain the community. The village transformed. What was once a collection of individual households became an interconnected organism of survival. Each person's role became more defined, more critical. Children learned new skills alongside adults. The traditional hierarchies dissolved, replaced by a more fluid, collaborative structure. Maria's medical training evolved. She was no longer just a healthcare provider but a strategist, a teacher, a leader. Her knowledge expanded beyond clinical practice into community organization, resource management, and psychological support. The call of survival echoed through every interaction, every decision. It was not just about maintaining life, but about reimagining what life could mean in this new, unpredictable world. Would they survive? The answer lay not in individual strength, but in their collective capacity to adapt, to learn, to transform challenges into opportunities. The art of survival demanded creativity beyond conventional understanding. Maria's approach transformed from reactive medical care to proactive community innovation, turning limited resources into unexpected solutions that would challenge the very boundaries of human adaptability. Local plants became their pharmaceutical laboratory. Traditional knowledge merged with scientific understanding as Maria collaborated with village elders, who possessed generational wisdom about medicinal herbs. Each plant represented a potential cure, each root a possible lifeline. They meticulously cataloged, tested, and developed alternative treatments using resources growing literally beneath their feet. Improvisation became their most sophisticated technology. Medical equipment was crafted from unexpected materials, sterilization techniques developed using solar heating, diagnostic tools created from repurposed agricultural implements. The clinic transformed into an ecosystem of innovation, where necessity truly became the mother of invention. Communication networks emerged through ingenious methods. Without digital infrastructure, they developed a sophisticated system of messenger networks, utilizing bicycle couriers, strategic signal points, and carefully coded communication methods. Information became as crucial as any medical supply, potentially saving lives through timely warning and shared knowledge. The community's collective intelligence revealed itself in surprising ways. Farmers became part-time medical assistants, craftspeople developed specialized medical tools, children learned critical survival skills that blended traditional knowledge with emerging necessities. Each individual's unique skill set became a critical component of their survival strategy. Water purification represented another frontier of innovation. They developed multi-stage filtration systems using local materials, layers of sand, charcoal, and carefully selected natural elements that could transform potentially contaminated water into a life-sustaining resource. Each drop became a testament to human ingenuity. Nutritional challenges sparked radical agricultural adaptations. Vertical farming techniques were implemented in limited spaces, seed preservation became a critical skill, and dietary strategies were developed to maximize nutritional intake with minimal resources. Food was no longer just sustenance, but a complex strategy of survival. Maria's leadership emerged not through traditional hierarchical structures, but through collaborative problem-solving. She facilitated rather than dictated, understanding that collective wisdom would always surpass individual knowledge. Each community meeting became a laboratory of ideas, each discussion a potential breakthrough. The boundaries between medical practice, community organization, and pure survival blurred. What was once considered specialized knowledge became shared survival strategy. Maria's role transformed from a traditional healthcare provider to a holistic community architect. Psychological resilience became as important as physical health. They developed community support systems, group therapy techniques, and collective coping mechanisms that addressed the profound psychological impact of systemic collapse. Each solution invented was more than a practical response, it was a statement of human potential. In the face of unprecedented challenges, they were not just surviving, but reimagining what human society could become. The question lingered: how far could human creativity stretch when confronted with total systemic breakdown? Their experiment in survival was just beginning. The silence that preceded the outbreak was more terrifying than any sound could have been. A new threat emerged, invisible yet devastating, challenging everything they had built and learned. The first signs were subtle, a few isolated cases that quickly transformed into a potential community-wide catastrophe. A mysterious illness began spreading through the village, defying their carefully constructed medical understanding. Symptoms appeared unpredictably, attacking with a complexity that overwhelmed even Maria's extensive medical knowledge. Fever, respiratory complications, and a rapid deterioration of immune responses created a scenario of unprecedented medical challenge. Panic threatened to unravel the delicate social fabric they had so carefully woven. Fear became as contagious as the disease itself, spreading faster than any medical intervention could contain. Maria recognized that their survival would depend not just on medical treatment, but on maintaining collective psychological stability. The origin of the outbreak remained a mystery. Was it a mutated pathogen? A result of environmental changes? The lack of diagnostic tools made their investigation more challenging. Each theory became a potential lifeline, each hypothesis a possible path to understanding and ultimately, survival. Resource allocation became a critical strategic decision. With limited medical supplies, who would receive treatment? How could they maximize survival chances while maintaining ethical considerations? Maria found herself making impossible choices, each decision carrying the weight of potential life or death. The village's carefully constructed support systems faced their most significant test. Communication networks became critical information highways. Every piece of information, every observation could mean the difference between containment and total community collapse. Isolation protocols were implemented with military-like precision. Quarantine zones were established, using innovative barriers created from available materials. Each boundary represented a line between potential survival and certain destruction. Maria's medical knowledge was pushed to its absolute limits. Traditional treatments proved ineffective, forcing her to develop experimental approaches that combined her formal medical training with the collective knowledge of the community. Each treatment became a calculated risk, each intervention a potential breakthrough or potential failure. The psychological toll became as significant as the physical challenge. Fear, uncertainty, and the potential of losing loved ones created an emotional landscape as treacherous as the medical challenge itself. Community support became as critical as medical intervention. Survival hung in a delicate balance. Their previous innovations, their carefully developed strategies, would now be tested in the most extreme circumstances. Everything they had built would be challenged by this invisible enemy. The great threat was not just the disease itself, but the potential breakdown of the social and psychological structures they had so carefully constructed. Maria understood that their survival depended on maintaining hope, maintaining connection, maintaining their collective spirit in the face of unprecedented challenge. As the outbreak reached its peak, a single question echoed through the village: would their collective resilience be enough to overcome this ultimate test of survival? The breakthrough emerged not from sophisticated technology, but from the most unexpected convergence of traditional wisdom and scientific observation. Maria's relentless pursuit of understanding the disease led to a moment of revelation that would challenge everything they knew about medical intervention. A combination of local medicinal plants, carefully observed indigenous healing practices, and Maria's medical training created an experimental treatment that defied conventional medical understanding. The process was meticulous, each step a calculated risk that balanced scientific methodology with intuitive healing approaches. The key came from an unlikely source, an elderly village member who remembered ancestral healing techniques passed down through generations. Traditional plant combinations, once dismissed as folklore, now represented their most promising medical intervention. Each plant, each preparation became a potential lifeline, each mixture a carefully calculated attempt to combat the mysterious illness. Laboratory conditions were improvised using whatever resources they could gather. Sterilization became an art form, medical equipment crafted from repurposed materials. Their makeshift medical center transformed into a hub of innovative medical research, challenging the very boundaries of what was considered possible under extreme circumstances. Initial tests brought both hope and trepidation. The first patients showed remarkable improvements, their bodies responding in ways that defied previous medical expectations. But each success was tempered by the potential for unexpected complications, each improvement balanced against the risk of total failure. Maria's approach combined scientific rigor with a holistic understanding of human healing. She recognized that treatment was more than just addressing physical symptoms. It required a comprehensive approach that considered psychological, environmental, and community-wide factors. The treatment protocol they developed became more than a medical intervention. It represented a revolutionary approach to understanding healing, a testament to human adaptability and collective intelligence. Each successful treatment was a victory not just against the disease, but against the limitations of traditional medical thinking. Psychological support became as critical as the physical treatment. They developed comprehensive care protocols that addressed the emotional and mental impact of the illness, recognizing that true healing extended beyond physical recovery. Documentation became crucial. With limited communication with the outside world, they became their own medical researchers, meticulously recording every observation, every treatment variation, every patient response. Their medical records represented a potential breakthrough in understanding disease management under extreme circumstances. The revolutionary treatment challenged fundamental assumptions about medical intervention. It demonstrated the power of combining scientific knowledge with traditional wisdom, of valuing collective intelligence over isolated expertise. As the number of recovered patients grew, a sense of hope began to replace the previous atmosphere of fear. The village transformed from a place of potential devastation to a beacon of medical innovation and human resilience. The question that remained was not just about surviving the current crisis, but about what this experience would mean for future medical understanding. They were writing a new chapter in the history of human medical intervention, one experimental treatment at a time. The transformation was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, like the first tender shoots breaking through scorched earth after a devastating fire. Healing became more than a medical process, it evolved into a profound social and spiritual renewal that touched every aspect of community life. Survivors emerged changed, carrying with them not just physical recovery, but a profound understanding of human resilience. The collective trauma they had experienced became a source of strength rather than continued pain. Each person carried the story of survival, each individual a living testament to the community's extraordinary journey. Maria observed the metamorphosis with a mixture of wonder and careful analysis. The village was no longer just a collection of individuals, but a living, breathing organism of collective intelligence and mutual support. Traditional social structures dissolved, replaced by a more fluid, interconnected system of mutual care and shared responsibility. Agricultural practices transformed dramatically. The lessons learned during their survival challenged previous agricultural approaches. They developed more sustainable, resilient farming techniques that integrated ecological understanding with practical survival strategies. Every piece of land became a potential source of healing, every plant a resource for both nutrition and medicine. Education underwent a radical reimagining. Children learned not just from books, but from the collective experience of survival. Skills became a form of currency more valuable than any previous economic system. Elders shared traditional knowledge, young people brought innovative thinking, and the community became a continuous learning environment. The medical clinic that had been their survival center transformed into a hub of holistic community development. It was no longer just a place of treatment, but a center of knowledge, innovation, and collective healing. Medical practice expanded beyond physical treatment to include psychological support, community organization, and educational resources. Psychological healing became as important as physical recovery. They developed community support systems that addressed the deep traumas of their collective experience. Group healing practices, shared storytelling, and collaborative emotional processing became integral to their social structure. Resource management evolved into a sophisticated system of collective decision-making. Every resource was viewed as a communal asset, with careful consideration given to long-term sustainability and collective well-being. The concept of individual ownership gave way to a more nuanced understanding of shared responsibility. Their isolation had become their strength. Cut off from previous global systems, they had developed a level of self-sufficiency and innovation that surpassed traditional community structures. They were no longer victims of circumstance, but architects of a new way of living. Maria stood as both a witness and a catalyst to this transformation. Her role had evolved from a medical professional to a community architect, a keeper of collective wisdom, a bridge between past survival and future potential. The Renaissance was not just about physical recovery, but about reimagining what human society could be. They had survived not just a medical crisis, but had emerged with a fundamentally new understanding of human potential, community, and collective resilience. As the first signs of true recovery took root, a profound question lingered: what new possibilities would emerge from this crucible of survival? The horizon stretched before them, not as a distant line of limitation, but as an expansive canvas of potential and reimagined possibility. Their journey of survival had transformed from a desperate struggle to a profound testament of human adaptability and collective intelligence. Maria reflected on the extraordinary path they had traversed. What began as a fight for mere survival had evolved into a comprehensive reimagining of human potential. The village was no longer just a geographical location, but a living laboratory of social innovation, medical understanding, and human resilience. Their experience represented more than a local story of survival. It was a blueprint for human adaptation in the face of systemic collapse. The strategies they had developed, from medical innovation to community organization, held lessons that extended far beyond their immediate context. Knowledge became their most valuable resource. The medical and social innovations they had developed were meticulously documented, creating a comprehensive archive of survival strategies. Each observation, each experimental treatment, each community decision became a potential resource for future generations. The psychological transformation was perhaps their most profound achievement. They had developed a collective approach to resilience that went beyond mere survival, creating a social structure based on mutual support, continuous learning, and holistic well-being. Environmental understanding became deeply integrated into their way of life. Their survival strategies had forced a profound reconnection with natural systems, developing approaches that balanced human needs with ecological sustainability. They were no longer separate from their environment, but deeply integrated participants in a complex ecological system. Education transformed into a continuous, community-wide process. Traditional age-based learning gave way to a more fluid system of knowledge exchange. Elders, children, medical professionals, farmers, all became simultaneous teachers and learners in a dynamic ecosystem of collective intelligence. Their medical approach represented a revolutionary fusion of traditional wisdom and scientific understanding. The treatments they had developed challenged fundamental assumptions about healing, showing the power of combining indigenous knowledge with rigorous scientific observation. Communication systems they had developed during their most challenging times became a sophisticated network of community connection. Information flow was no longer about top-down transmission, but about collective sense-making and shared understanding. Maria understood that their story was not just about survival, but about human potential. They had demonstrated that when faced with total systemic collapse, human beings could not just endure, but could reimagine and reconstruct social systems with creativity, compassion, and collective intelligence. The new horizon was not a distant promise, but an immediate reality they were actively creating. Each day represented an opportunity for further innovation, for deeper understanding, for continued transformation. As the sun set on another day of their renewed existence, a profound question lingered. What extraordinary possibilities would they explore next? The journey of survival had become a journey of continuous becoming. Their story was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning.